Hi, welcome to the Healing Mama Show. I'm Sharon Showmaker, and this is Brittany Hobbs. And hopefully, you're seeing us side by side. It's, it is taking us way too long to try to troubleshoot this, and we are hoping that it is official that we've solved this dilemma and that we are now side by side. I'm a little hesitant to celebrate too soon, but I'm really trusting that we've actually figured this piece out. Just wanted to welcome you back into this conversation. And I want to invite Brittany to just slow us down here a little bit and drop us into this space.
Yeah, thank you. So, if you're in a safe space to do so and you want to close your eyes, go ahead and do that. And just take your hands and start massaging or gently rubbing whatever part of your body is calling to you, just to bring your awareness from that busy mind and down into our body, and filling up with deep, nourishing breath. Maybe feeling your rear on the seat, your feet on the ground, and just having your hands just giving some love and support to your body. And calling all parts of yourself right to this here and now. Being ready and open to hear what is for your highest good and to leave behind all the rest. And with that, if you have a candle that you want to light, to just open this little space for yourself to commune with all of us. And I sometimes like to say, with this candle alight, sacred space now burns bright, and only love and light may enter. That just adds a little bit of extra sacredness or intention to the space that we are cultivating.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I think this is officially our 5th episode. So I'm just celebrating us in actually following through, continuing to show up amidst all the other things that are calling us and that are beckoning us and that are weighing on our conscious mama heart. And I think with that, I just want to invite the listeners to check in with themselves and see if there's anything that they can take a moment and celebrate with us. And if you're able to share it in the comments, allow us to witness you and celebrate something with you. Is there something that you've been wanting to do, or something to support yourself, or a boundary that you set, like anything big or small? Is there something that you can take a moment and just celebrate within yourself and in this community?
Yeah, that's beautiful. And something as small as getting the screens to show up correctly on Zoom. It doesn't have to be some big, elaborate thing. The more that we learn to celebrate the small things, that changes and retemplates the way that our mind works to start recognizing more of the positive and the beautiful things, because it's so easy for us to get stuck in that scrutinizing or that not enough mode, or I can do better, and constantly be on the search for how can I be better. And we don't acknowledge all the progress that we've made up to that point. And to acknowledge all that progress, it takes us pausing and acknowledging those celebrations. And that's something that I continue to need to work on. But it feels so good when I remember to, especially if I put on a song that lets me dance around in my little mini celebration. It makes it feel that much more exciting and lights up my whole being.
Yeah, no, I love that. Yeah, just taking a moment to be present and like scan our life for the little gems that might have gone unnoticed or that are technically being overshadowed by all of the things that we feel like we're not accomplishing or not able to do or didn't follow through with, or we've set the bar at a kind of people like perfectionist level, and we actually will likely never reach that mark, or I'm wanting.
The mark keeps moving up too,
Yeah.
right? It's like a moving target. And so if you're always waiting to meet that mark, once you reach a certain level, that mark moves up because you keep reaching new levels of consciousness or new levels of skills or abilities or awareness.
Thank you. Yeah, it's a moving target. And which is a good thing, right? Because that means you're wanting to continue to expand or grow and continue to evolve, right? So if you actually set a target and you reached it and then it stayed there, your evolution would kind of be stagnant at that place. So yeah, I love that you brought that in, and to celebrate all the progress that you've made as the target and that kind of mark continues to move.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that.
Yeah. So earlier, before we hopped on, we were talking and having a conversation about what are some of the things we could bring to the table? Like, what are some conversations to be had? And honestly, we could have pushed record at that moment, and we were joking like, oh, we could just glaze over all of these things that conscious mamas are holding in their hearts and the things that they're walking through this world with, and then let you all decide, like, what do you want to hear more of? What do you want more like solidarity in? And I think we landed with just like acknowledging all the different aspects and balls that we are juggling and carrying as conscious mamas who are wanting to heal and shift from things that didn't serve them, templates, imprints, systems, ways of being that didn't serve us as a child, and really do the work to be able to do something different for our families. And that requires us to heal a lot. It requires us to be so deeply present to what's alive so that we can receive the message and can see and observe where we may be either like continuing to perpetuate what we don't want, or where we can celebrate where we've made shifts and that we're not, or where we've like hit a fork in the road and where we can decide like, oh, this is one path and we can forge a new way over here. And I just, yeah, again, celebrating all the mamas that are like forging new ways of being without without a roadmap.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And yeah, there's a lot of balls to hold, and it's picking and choosing just based on what's going on at the moment, how present we are. I know that when we're trying to hold a boundary, or we're trying to be really discerning about what we ourselves are exposing ourselves to, but also what our children are exposed to, it goes much better if we're in a centered place versus a triggered place of, oh my gosh, I'm failing as a mom because I'm letting them listen to this. And it can be so easy to not approach that in the best way. And then it sets up a lot of resistance within our kids too, of, maybe wanting to cling tighter to whatever that thing is, versus having a really present conversation around, the reasons behind why we may not want them to watch or listen to certain things, bringing an extra amount of understanding to what the messages in those, the content it makes it, no, you can't do that. I don't want you listening to that anymore, to being like, did you listen to the words, and how does that make you feel in your body, or what do you think this means? And kind of letting them almost come to the conclusion on their own. But we also still might have to set a hard boundary or choose our battles. I wish I had a different word for battle, but choosing our battles.
Yeah, I think I had come up, I don't know, that song like Love is a Battlefield was in my like in my field there for a little while. I don't know, months ago. And I think I had something. I'll have to circle back around to that. But yeah, I really appreciate how intentional you try to be with your language, because I feel the same way. Is like so much of the language around parenting is like, choose your battles. And it's like, well, I don't ever want to battle with my children. I really would love to come at everything from a place of connection, collaboration, communication, and conversation, so that they don't feel like I'm like ruling them with an iron fist, that it's my way or the highway, because I feel like that only creates resistance. And I feel really grateful that I've been able to slow things down enough and to look, or I feel really grateful that my eyes were open to how toxic the messages and the level of violence and the level of like hypersexuality and like toxic ways that we show up in relationships or we treat our own body. I'm really grateful that I can see that now. And I walk through life with that lens and trying to filter out stuff for my children and for myself, actually, really is kind of a really important thing, like how media and music, and now it's social media too, like our Instagram feeds, how these things imprint us, how they are technically programs, right? Like, and it's funny that they used to call television shows and what's on, it's like programming. What's the television programming for this evening, and the things that I was programmed with, I'm a hard no on passing down and allowing my children to be imprinted with as well. And the only way that I can navigate that without seeming like a warden is like really to have the conversations and help my children see how like the lens that this song is being written in, or what's being promoted, or how watching something that has like that level of violence or bullying or meanness, like how that feels in their body. And I'll wrap it up after this and let you chime in, is like, I don't think our parents had that language. So we just kind of received and consumed content, and that resulted us in being like heavily imprinted and programmed by what was entertainment at that time, right?
Yep. Or we got the hard no, and it's because I said so. Right? Without the explanation or the understanding of, okay, well, why can't I do this?
Yeah.
And I think that goes a long ways in having the acceptance of, okay, that sounds really reasonable. And I know that there are times when we have to draw the hard line because of certain situations, but that really, I don't think is that frequently, especially if we have open, grounded conversations with our kiddos. And again, if we're modeling that behavior, right? If we're watching or listening to things that we don't want them to watch or listen to, and age plays into that too on the appropriateness, but we can't tell them one thing and then we live another way either.
Yeah, no, I love that you brought that in, like the because I said so, like that is a battlefield right there. Like that is a battle. And I can't imagine, like, I feel like when you're really convicted in your choices, like when you are being guided by like your intuition or this inner knowing or something that's been put on your heart, I feel like you can always do justice to that reasoning and give your children like some understanding. I can't think of a time, like I really try hard not to say like because I said so, and I'm trying to think of a time, unless I was just really impatient and snappy and just a little feisty, that I would say something like that. But I feel like everything, when you become connected and present, that you know your reasoning behind things, right? Like you really are convicted in your values and what you align with and what you do or don't want. And it comes back to like the boundaries, right? And being able to vocalize like this is a no because of whatever reasoning is behind that. Do you feel the same way?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think, yeah, again, it all comes down to that self-reflection too, because it can also be really easy to allow, and speaking from personal experience, like if you see something or hear something that maybe they're being exposed to, like it's really easy to like have that fear rise up and take over and lose the words or lose that groundedness to have the conversation. And so it takes a lot of like pause, self-reflect, maybe ask them to pause whatever's going on, whether it be
Yeah.
music or video games or movies or, whatever the source is. But having them pause it and then regroup yourself. Because like I said, the fear of what they're being exposed to or the triggers that rise up within us that throw us into an unconscious reaction or a subconscious reaction, that's not the time and place to try to have that conversation. We got to reground and reflect on, okay, why is this making me like feel like I'm in fight or flight? And then once we get to the root of what that reasoning is, then we can come and have those words to use with our kiddos.
Yeah, I love that. And I think the way, because it is like in that moment, it's like it does, I don't want to say the end of the world, but in that moment, because I see it as like our children can't unsee or can't unhear things, or you know what I mean? Like they, once an image flashes on a screen, then that image is imprinted in their field, like that is something that they can close their eyes and now see, and it's something that never existed before in their being. And so it does feel very triggering and like hyper protective and hyper vigilant to want to guard their innocence and to guard that I like the word pure is coming out, but just like that clean slate, like how do we do our best to keep our children's slate clean of imprints and things that don't serve their highest good?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And obviously we're not going to protect them from everything, but
No.
we can certainly do our best to hold a certain amount of space and be really discerning with the content.
Yeah. Oh gosh. And that was one of the things that I feel like this is like surface level, although we did travel a little deep, but well, I guess we're here. We might as well speak to like, as we're creating content and as we're creating programming programs, like courses, things like that, as we consume other people's programs or courses or content, like I know for me, it's really important for the person that I'm learning from or being imprinted with to have either similar values or to be a clean vessel or to feel really grounded and centered. And as we create, we're doing the work to make sure that like what we're bringing into the world and what we're birthing is coming from a place with like really clean intentions and really pure energy that is like connected to the highest good and wanting to serve. And with that said, there's also a lot of content that's created that people aren't doing that level of work to make it a clean container A lot of times when music is written or it's under the influence of either drugs or alcohol or toxic relationships. And so that's why it feels so important to like be vigilant in those things that we allow our children to consume, because it's not just the words sometimes, right? There's also energetic elements to it. There's chords that can be, you know, connected and latch on. Like there is a whole spiritual and energetic layer that I don't think, again, like our parents or even the less conscious version of me even considered 10 or 12 years ago, right? I just consumed because that was what was available and it sounded good or it felt good. But yeah,
a catchy line or some
catchy. I know. Like, I mean, my daughter has been learning to like teaching herself guitar, and she heard a catchy guitar riff and she couldn't get it. And she was like, I just want to learn it, mom. And it's the song by Joan Jett, like, I hate myself for loving you. And as someone who's super conscious, who is aware that our thoughts create our reality, we want to have really gentle voices. Like I want to teach them not to hate themselves, right? They're like, I feel angry with myself. But now she's like singing, I hate myself for loving you. And I'm like, okay, it's a conversation. This is where this song came from. Let's do the work to like pull the cords and to like not template yourself and to set the bar higher for relationships that are going to eventually come your way as you get older. Like we're not going, like the goal would be to not have them imprinted that these relationships and this way of relating to people is the norm and what is to be expected. So there's one example of like how just a little catchy guitar riff, like I want to respect her autonomy and her sovereignty and allow her to make choices for herself. And I said it before we were recording, but there's this dynamic of I want my child and my children to have sovereignty over their choices and what they listen to or the things that they participate in or follow. And there's also a deep knowing that because there's programming and imprinting and templating, that free reign could have lasting effects on their soul, on their nervous system, on their way of relating to people and their way of showing up in the world. And so I think that's where that like that panicked moment of like, no, because I said so, you know, comes in. And it's like, okay, it's just a conversation. Like we can just have these conversations. So there's my pulling the veil back on one of my things that I'm literally walking through and navigating, trying to protect the innocence and the blueprint, the true like divine encoding of my daughter, right?
Yeah, and I was sharing my daughter's current obsession with Taylor Swift's music, and how she has been playing it and also partially teaching herself to read by watching the lyrics go by on Spotify as she's listening to the sounds. And not my ideal choice, but she loves it. She's super passionate about it. She's teaching herself to read with it. And we've also had conversations that certain albums I would prefer her not to listen to because the content is too old and also has just, that templating that I really don't want her to be imprinted with, surrounding relationships and just the way she uses her body to attract men and things like that, or taunting men. And and so that's a whole conversation. Again, with the sovereignty piece, it lights her up, it excites her. And so we just have to work on compromising within that. And it's a challenging path to walk, because again, I don't want to be a dictator and I can't shield her from everything. And I also want to honor what does light her up, but within trying to keep some boundaries around that.
Yeah, it reminds me, like, again, back to boundaries and the importance of them being flexible and not too rigid so that they actually serve us and don't cause destruction or don't hinder a relationship or connection with the people that we deeply want to stay connected with. And yeah, I think I'm on the same path as with my son who likes to play drums, and he's like, what about this song? And he hears me like, okay, let's listen to the lyrics. Like, what are they trying to convey here? It sounds like, ooh, like you're just 9 years old. And like, that's a song about, whatever adult theme is present in that. And yeah, and the heaviest part of it all is that it's so prevalent in our culture and so normalized that it's actually really hard to find conscious music and conscious books and conscious movies and conscious TV, anything that is not so like woven and programmed with faulty templates and faulty stories and things that don't serve us. Like we're so deep in the programming and in the systems and the cultures that just like art imitates life art imitates art, like the toxicity and the unwellness is permeating and infused into books, movies, stories, songs. Like it's a lot. It's a lot.
It is a lot. And even coming into schooling, I know you and I both have a really loose approach to and more of a self-directed approach to learning, but I do, being a scientist and growing up in the normal school system, I do like to glance at different curriculum ideas just to see if I get inspiration for different art things I could introduce to the kids, or different books or ways to allow them to learn about history or things like that. And I end up walking away like so tense and so just frustrated because I look at all the lists of the recommended readings or this and that, and I just see the old paradigms and the old templating just like woven into that's setting up the next generation to continue on with that programming. And I just walk away, I'm like, never mind, I'll figure something out on my own, and I'll just keep hoping and praying that there are other conscious parents out there that are starting to be more thoughtful, that maybe have a passion for writing more conscious, more well-rounded version of history, or like telling both sides instead of just telling it from one perspective, or, getting to the root of what Greek mythology is and telling it, not just from this toxic perspective, but getting to what were the stories before that even. And, again, I'm still hoping, I'm like, somebody is going to write something geared towards so that I can present it to my kids and have conversations about it. But yeah, for now, I just am kind of taking it day by day, because I really don't want to put all of that programming on my kids that I've been spending years unprogrammed within myself.
Yes. Oh, yes. And like on that note, I feel like maybe we could dive into school and things like that maybe in the next episode so that you can understand like our approach and what we're doing in our families and our homes to both support us from that deprogramming and that unlearning and that that new way of trusting our children, trusting their innate like curiosities, things like that. I feel like that would be a beautiful direction to go. But while we're here, I would love to invite anybody, and I'll share some of my favorite books. Like we've cherry picked a handful of different series or books that just really feel good to read with my children. I'm sure you have some favorite ones too. And we'd love to hear anybody else's shares on books or stories. Like you can even have like well, we love this book, but it ties into this, or it highlights this, but we talk about it in this way, so that as we like choose content for our families to consume, that we're all like in this conversation of like, we could do better than this. Better's not here yet, but this is how we can tweak and work with what's available to us. So I would love for you all to just share like some of your favorite things to watch or read or listen to with your kiddos and your family, and we'll work on kind of putting in the comments some of our favorites as well.
Yeah, and even building eventually, once we start hearing from you guys, building out some
Yeah.
resources on our website too. And I know you and I have both talked about creating some Healing Mamas playlists on Spotify and things like that. So that's something for all of us to really look forward, is pulling together all of our resources to share, because it does take a lot of time and research. And if we can support one another in, maybe you've already covered this and maybe I've covered this and this person's covered that, and we pull it all together, it can be really supportive and cut back on kind of the time intensiveness that it
Yeah.
takes to
Yeah, especially because in order to like give it your thumbs of approval, you kind of have to watch it before you share it with your children, or read it before you share it with your children, lest you're like in the midst of something that you really wish you wouldn't have opened the can of worms on. Because yeah, to even have the conversation about what is not okay with it begins the imprinting and the programming. So yeah, I love that. Wow, that went by really fast. We could have like gone down the rabbit hole of so many different areas, but I just want to thank you all again for sharing space with us, for contributing to this conversation, and for sharing like what's alive for you. How does it resonate? What are you walking through right now that feels heavy, and that having someone else on the path with you would like lessen the burden a little bit? I feel like that's what we can do for each other as we forge our own ways and our own unique paths.
Yeah, and as we've mentioned, we love to hear from each of you. It kind of adds to what we bring together, and it starts to build this community. And we also will create shows based on what we see in the comments also.
Yeah.
I also wanted to mention that we will have a full moon ceremony coming up on Monday, the 27th, I think that is.
Yeah.
And we would love to see you all there. We'll have things posted on our Instagram page, and we'll also try to have something down below
Yes.
in the comments.
On that note, click and subscribe, give us a thumbs up. Oh, but yeah, no, we've got stuff that's brewing over here, and we're really excited to share about it with you all. We'll get some official like pages and links for you all to follow to be able to sign up for the full moon ceremony on Monday. But yeah, thanks for being here with us, and thanks for doing your part and shifting the way that this world is unfolding and the way that things are going. We can only control so much, and it's really working in our own little corner of our being, in the little corner of our family and our home and in our community. And thanks for holding down the fort, like wherever you are.
Yeah. And with that, as we blow out our candles, we can just envision calling all of our energy back to us as separate sovereign beings. And we hope to see you again really soon.
I love that. Bye.